Hi, I'm Chef Alex Askew, and welcome back to part two, Stirring the Pot Conversations with Food, Race, and Social Justice. We have Chef Cassandra, who's staying with us for part two of this episode. Thank you so much, Chef Cassandra, for hanging in there with us and doing a part two segment to this very, very interesting Stirring the Pot segment. You brought up some really profound things, and we're going to get into part two now. And I want you to as we left the audience off in the part one, pick this trail up around, where you are, what it looks like, feels like, smells like, tastes like, and give them, an idea of, not only how you've navigated that, but how COVID has actually impacted that as well.
Yes. So when the pandemic hit, I was at the Test Kitchen in Boston working. We went home on a Wednesday, and by the time I had got to the driveway, I'd gotten an email from work, and I thought I just left work. Like, what could this emergency be?
Mm-hmm.
And they thought they found a case of COVID in our building, not in our workspace, but in the building. Turns out that was not true, but COVID was starting to rapidly spread throughout Boston because there had been a convention in the downtown Seaport area a few days prior with everyone coming in. I believe it was a medical convention from all over the world to discuss medicine. And some of that came with them. So I sat in my house in Boston for 2 weeks. And because we were told, oh, it's just going to be, 2 weeks, one more week. And then when they were like 2 more weeks, I thought, you know what, if I'm working from home, I can go home and see my family for a few weeks and come back. And here we are 14 months later, and we're still working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So I am actually in Georgia, in my hometown, and I still write, I still work and develop recipes. And for us, I mean, business is booming. People tend to approach or come into cooking if they're new at a life change. They get married, they have a baby, they retire, and they're only cooking for two. So with COVID, so many people were eating out very frequently. That was no longer an option. You couldn't grab something in the morning at a coffee shop and then, eat lunch at work and then meet your friends for drinking some apps after. So people were scrambling, trying to learn how to cook or trying to figure out, now that I'm cooking every day, what else can I cook besides these 10 dishes that I know?
Right.
So
Right.
people tend to seek out food and community in times of crisis and when they need comfort. So the pandemic has sparked a huge renewal in home cooking and community and a need to belong. I mean, you saw it with the shortage of everybody made sourdough, the shortage of yeast and flour, because they just needed something that was very comforting, very basic to give them some sense of stability.
Right. Well, times have changed, and I don't think they're ever going to revert to how they used to be.
No.
When it comes to food justice and the current events, what's your opinion on where we are, and I'm going to ask you a little bit later about where we where you can help us gather some direction and thought of where we should go. But where are we right now?
Our communities are on, if we thought we were in crisis last year, we are just a hair trigger away from a major crisis. And I think the pandemic brought a lot of issues to light. Since I've been back at home, I can see a major difference. And I'm really grateful for this time that I could really settle down and open my eyes and take a look around. 20 years ago, this neighborhood was in much better financial shape. This was a neighborhood, a Black predominant neighborhood that was started in the 1960s. And it consisted of lawyers, teachers, doctors, educators, those types of folks that wanted to, have a piece of the American dream, the lawn, the fence, the dog. Um, but I've seen so many changes. This neighborhood right now is not impoverished, but because so many people have passed on and their children don't want the house, or they, retired, or the property is abandoned, We're on the neighborhood itself is on the brink. And we all know that poverty should be avoided at all costs because the effects are wide reaching. Substandard housing and homelessness, inadequate nutrition, food security, lack of access to healthcare, et cetera. So these are the things that I'm starting to see. We had several grocery stores and farmers markets around the entire time I grew up. Maybe 10 years ago, a major grocer pulled out because they weren't getting the traffic they wanted. And there are some little markets around, but they're basically enhanced convenience stores. It's mostly chips, snacks, sodas, and they have some ready to eat food available. And if you live in this neighborhood and you don't have a car, it is impossible for you to get to the grocery store. The closest grocery store, I live on the border. So the closest grocery store in state is 16 miles away, and there is no bus route to get there.
Wow.
Now there is a closer grocery store that is 3 miles away, but it's in the bordering state, South Carolina. There's no bus that goes from Georgia to South Carolina, a city bus. So it is very difficult. You have very low options. So the issue that we're seeing with the pandemic is particularly in suburban areas and smaller towns is that governments are looking to where can we get more money? And they're looking at these areas like where I live as a source of, oh, we can revitalize, we can redevelop. Well, guess what? Everybody here would get pushed out. The focus is not on, we're not poor enough to get government assistance as a neighborhood or a community, but we're also not economically attractive for some developer to come in and say, you know what, we're going to put in more parks and we're going to do this and we're going to change everything. So we really need to focus on stabilizing and revitalizing our neighborhoods. And we can only do that through community-based food systems. If we had a community-based food system in this neighborhood, everything would completely change. There would be people that are not working that would be able to work. Whether that's at a little, we've got a little market every couple of blocks, or we have people, maybe they can't work outside of the home, but they could get an agricultural license. And if they grow vegetables, they can make products that they can sell, non-hazardous food products. Like the neighborhood would change, the nutrition would be better, their health would be better. So it starts, number one, we had this battle with the grocery stores. We don't want to come into this area because we don't get the revenue return. And that's the end of the conversation. We don't talk about, why do you not get the revenue return? This was a wealthy neighborhood not that long ago. Most of the, well, some, I won't say most, some of the original residents still live in the neighborhood. But again, people move away, their kids don't want the house. So it is crucial that we address these food deserts if we want to save our neighborhoods. And you think, well, when you think about, particularly for me, Black neighborhoods, how can you save a Black neighborhood and why is that important? 79% of Black people live in a Black neighborhood. So if we let our neighborhoods go, our culture is gone. And I don't think people realize that.
Wow, there's a lot on the line that people don't know about. Tell our audience, what are the special projects that you're working on right now that they'd be interested in hearing, and how can people get in touch with you and support you in your vision of how to create health equity, especially in the food, race, social justice, and the culinary arts?
Sure. One of the things that I'm really focused on right now is teaching our younger generation how to cook, how to handle their health and nutrition, how to make good decisions. It's a basic skill, but it's also a cultural issue. If we send them away to college and they don't know how to cook anything, what are they going to do? They lose a lot of that, and they lose a lot of the traditions. So one of the projects that I will be working on starting September, November is basically a heritage recipe project where our goal as a collection of chefs is we want to capture family recipes that otherwise may be lost when people pass on, to standardize those, to share them around. And if people need to make adjustments for health concerns, no one wants to give up sweet potatoes, and there is nothing wrong with sweet potatoes at all. It's actually a really great food. If you need to adapt a recipe to make it fit into your new lifestyle or your health goals, that's something we want to help with. So you can find me on Instagram at Chef Cassandra. So that's ChefCassandra on Instagram. Same name on Facebook. And you can also reach me by email. It's chef.cassandra@gmail.com.
Great. And we'll end with a slide and have all your contact information, because that recipe project sounds like a really good engagement tool that everyone can kind of participate in preserving their family food culture. Thank you
Right.
so much, Chef Cassandra.
Thank you
And
for having me. It's been wonderful.
and thank you to our audience who stays tuned and following and stirring the pot, where our audience grows larger and larger each episode. I want to thank everyone that participated in the production, and also those interested in really engaging in authentic conversations around food, race, and social justice. There is a movement happening that we can all participate in, and understanding, first of all, where our food comes from, how it impacts our communities, our health on an individual and family level. And then for all of those chefs, especially chefs of color, get engaged and be mobilized in being community thought leaders and health ambassadors of your community. And we can show you how to do that. We're doing that now at BCA Global. And let's keep this movement going, because a healthy community is a productive community. And we know that that works out well for everyone in and outside the community. So with that all said, thank you very much for attending and being participatory and engaging in this Stirring the Pot episode. And stay tuned for another episode coming soon of Stirring the Pot, BCA Global's conversation around food, race, and social justice. See you for now.